At the wedding reception, my in-laws caused a scene. They were visibly drunk and didn't seem to care that people were whispering about them. As if that wasn't enough, they began yelling at me in front of the guests. "It's too late now that you're married," they sneered. "But if you want to be part of this family, you need to prove you have enough money." They didn't stop there. "Yes, your dad is right," one of them added. "So make sure to give us $1,000 a month as a family bonus." I stood there, frozen in shock. Their demands were beyond anything I could have imagined, and I felt the color drain from my face. Just as I was struggling to find a response, my dad stepped in, grabbing the microphone. He addressed them firmly. "Enough is enough. Don't you realize you're embarrassing yourselves?" he said, his voice steady and full of authority. That moment encapsulated the whirlwind of emotions I had been feeling throughout this journey. "My name is Linda, and I'm a 30-year-old office worker. I recently got married to Larry, a 32-year-old I met through a mutual friend. Growing up, my life wasn't always easy. My mother passed away when I was very young, leaving my father to raise me on his own. He worked tirelessly to provide for me, and though I didn't lack anything material, the loss of my mom left a deep emotional scar. Because of this, I guarded my heart carefully and didn't date much, thinking I could be content staying single. Then I met Larry. At first, I wasn't romantically interested in him, even though he persistently asked me out. Larry was kind, patient, and respectful, qualities that slowly made me lower my walls. Over time, I realized he genuinely cared for me, and my feelings for him grew. After a year of dating, Larry proposed. His heartfelt promise to always support and cherish me touched my heart deeply. He would often say, "Don't worry if you're unsure about something. I'll be here for you until you feel better. I love you, Linda, you can count on me." Hearing those words made me feel secure. I wanted to give him the same kind of love and support he gave me. When I told my dad about our engagement, he was overwhelmed with joy. "Wow, Linda, you're finally getting married. I'm so happy for you," he said, tears streaming down his face. "Dad, don't be so dramatic," I teased, though I felt deeply touched by his emotions. "I was always worried you might never get married," he admitted. "Really? I didn't know that," I replied, laughing softly. "Every father worries about his daughter, but now I can rest easy. Congratulations, sweetheart," he said warmly. His heartfelt blessing meant everything to me. I knew he had been both my father and mother, and I was proud to make him happy. Larry and I dove into wedding preparations, juggling our busy work schedules and hectic weekends. Despite the chaos, we looked forward to our big day. I had only met Larry's parents once before the wedding. Their initial impression was less than welcoming. On my first visit, his mother greeted me with a forced politeness that quickly turned cold. "So, you're Linda," she said, her tone icy as she scrutinized me from head to toe. "What do you bring to the table? Larry is our only child and our treasure. Are you sure you're worthy of him?" Her words felt more like an interrogation than a conversation. I struggled to respond, stunned by her attitude. She continued, "You're joining our family. Are you prepared for what that means?" I wanted to tell her that Larry's family wasn't some prestigious dynasty. This wasn't a royal wedding, and I wasn't auditioning for a reality show. But I bit my tongue, determined to stay composed. Now, at the wedding reception, her behavior and that of the rest of Larry's family showed me what I was truly up against. My dad's intervention reminded me that I wasn't alone, but I couldn't help but wonder what kind of family I had just married into. Why was I being asked to make such a heavy commitment, especially when I wasn't even planning to live with them? I hated being pressured like this. As I struggled to find the right words, Larry's mother grew impatient and snapped at me. "When I ask a question, I expect an immediate answer. Don't be rude," she scolded. "I'm asking if you're ready for this." Her tone grew louder, making me feel even more overwhelmed. Summoning my courage, I managed to reply, "I hope that Larry and I will support each other in our marriage." Her reaction was dismissive. "How naive! It's not just about supporting each other. Your job as his wife is to support him. You clearly don't understand what being a wife entails." Larry's father, sitting quietly until then, finally stepped in. "Honey, calm down. Linda, I'm sorry if my wife startled you with her words," he said in a gentler tone, trying to ease the tension. "It's all right," I replied, though I was struggling to stay composed. I tried to tell myself that Larry's mother was just protective of her only son and that her nerves might have gotten the better of her. Then Larry's brother walked into the room. He seemed calm and kind at first, speaking in a soft, composed tone, but that momentary relief vanished as he said something completely unexpected. "My wife's concerns are valid," he began with a smile that didn't match his words. "What worries me most is that you come from a single-parent family." "What do you mean by that?" I asked, confused and unsettled. "Well," he said, "being raised by only one parent doesn't exactly give you the best image. It's not ideal for someone marrying into our family, especially as the wife of our only son." I couldn't stay silent. What's wrong with being raised by a single parent? My father worked hard to raise me, and I'm proud of the person I've become because of him. Being from a single-parent family doesn't make me less worthy or capable. But they persisted. "Without a mother, how could you have learned to be a good wife or manage a household?" "I did plenty of housework growing up to help my father, and I'm a great cook," I countered firmly. "So please don't say such things." Larry's mother ignored my response and delivered her ultimatum. "Fine, I'll allow you to marry Larry, but only if you promise to devote yourself entirely to us as his parents. Can you promise that?" I was stunned. "What? You came here seeking our approval, didn't you? Then you know what your duties are," she continued, giving me no room to object. That night, as I reflected on the meeting, I decided to share my concerns with Larry. "Larry, do your parents always talk to people like that?" I asked cautiously. "What about it?" he replied nonchalantly. "I mean, the way they spoke to me today. Don't you think it was a bit much?" "Oh, come on, they were just trying to see if you're ready for marriage," he said, brushing it off. "I get that they're concerned about their son, but the way they questioned me, especially about my upbringing, felt very hurtful." I explained. "Well, they didn't say anything wrong. Besides, they've given us their blessing, so let's just move on," Larry said dismissively. I felt a pang of unease. His casual dismissal made me feel unsupported, as if he didn't care about how I'd been treated. Seeing my discomfort, he hugged me. "Linda, don't overthink this. My parents are just emotional because I'm their only son. They want the best for us," he said soothingly. "They said they want us to be as good a couple as they are, which is why they were a bit harsh." "Really?" I said, though I didn't believe it. High expectations didn't justify belittling someone, especially over something as personal as my family background. It was our marriage, and it should be about us. Their approval, or lack thereof, shouldn't matter more than our happiness. Yet, Larry's reaction left me questioning if he truly saw it that way. I was still upset, but I decided not to let Larry's parents' behavior overshadow our special day. The wedding day arrived, and it was a beautiful celebration with family, friends, colleagues, and loved ones all gathered to witness our union. My father, who had raised me on his own, proudly walked me down the aisle. Larry and I exchanged vows and rings, sealing our commitment to each other amid applause and smiles. For the first time, I felt a deep, genuine happiness as I realized I was now married to Larry. At the reception, the atmosphere was lively and filled with joy. Videos of Larry and me played as part of the entertainment, and I was surrounded by well-wishers, including friends I hadn't seen in years. Despite my earlier reservations about his parents, I felt a sense of peace. It was a day to remember, filled with cherished moments and hope for our future. As the event neared its end, it was time for the traditional send-off. Larry and I, along with our parents, stood in line to greet and thank our guests. That's when things started to unravel. I noticed Larry's parents were unsteady, their faces flushed from drinking too much. Their slurred speech and erratic movements were beginning to draw whispers from the crowd. I tried to maintain composure, but the tension was palpable. Suddenly, Larry's mother grabbed my arm, her voice loud and unsteady. "Listen to me, Linda," she bellowed, sounding more like a wrestler cutting a promo than a mother addressing her son's new wife. "From now on, you're going to devote yourself to us completely. Be ready because we're going to test you hard." Guests exchanged uneasy glances, some chuckling nervously, thinking it was a joke. But it wasn't. Before I could respond, Larry's father grabbed the microphone. "Linda, don't you feel embarrassed wearing that dress? It doesn't suit you at all." I was stunned, my face heating as the whispers among the guests turned from awkward amusement to outright disbelief. I looked to Larry, silently pleading for him to step in, but he only shrugged. "They're just being themselves," he mumbled. My heart sank. It was clear that he had no intention of standing up for me, not now, not ever. As if things couldn't get worse, Larry's parents began demanding money right there at the reception. "After you register your marriage tomorrow, you'll need to start giving us a few $1,000s a month. And don't forget to hand over your bonuses." His father's voice boomed with entitlement. I felt lightheaded, unable to process their audacity. But my father, ever the composed and dignified man, stepped in. He took the microphone from Larry's father and said firmly, "That's enough. Do you realize you're embarrassing yourselves?" Larry's parents glared at him, unrepentant. "Why are you interrupting us? You're just a single father, what would you know?" His mother sneered. My chest tightened with anger. How dare they insult my father? But he remained calm, his voice steady. "I may be a single parent, but I raised my daughter with love and dignity, values you clearly lack. And by the way," he added, "I happen to know President Scott personally. He's not just a business partner of mine. He's also a dear friend. Did you know President Scott was raised by a single mother? So when you insult single parents, you insult the president of your own company." The color drained from my father-in-law's face. He stammered, "Why, you know President Scott?" "Yes," my father replied, "and I wonder how he would feel knowing his employee behaves like this in public." Larry's father dropped to his knees, his arrogance vanishing in an instant. "Please, sir, don't tell the president about this. I beg you." Laughter rippled through the room as some guests recorded the dramatic scene. My father looked down at him with quiet disdain. "Apologies won't erase your behavior," he said firmly. Then he turned to me, his expression softening. "Linda, are you ready to go? You don't have to put up with this nonsense any longer." I took my father's hand, feeling a rush of gratitude and pride. I realized then that I deserved better respect, better love, and better support. When Larry asked if I wanted to go home with him, I took a deep breath and replied confidently. Then, I took the microphone from his hand and addressed the crowd. "Thank you, everyone, for the great entertainment," I began, my voice steady and resolute. "But there will be no marriage." Gasps filled the reception hall as I continued. "I will ensure every penny you contributed to this event is returned. Thank you for your understanding." With that, I walked out of the hall with my father by my side. I caught a glimpse of Larry and his parents, their faces frozen in shock. Chaos erupted behind me as his relatives rushed toward him, their expressions a mix of worry and confusion. True to my word, I returned the gifts and money from the guests, apologizing sincerely for the situation. Surprisingly, they offered words of sympathy and support, commending me and my father for standing firm. "You did the right thing," one guest said. "Better to walk away now than suffer later." Word of the fiasco quickly spread. Larry's coworkers, who had witnessed the debacle, shared the story at his workplace. His reputation took a nosedive as he became known as the man with unreasonable parents and a weak character. The shame eventually drove him to resign. As for his father, the president of his company, an old friend of my dad, learned about the incident. Larry's father was demoted and transferred to a remote office in the countryside. Their family's fall from grace was swift, and even their relatives began to distance themselves. While it was unfortunate, their actions had brought it upon themselves. In the aftermath, I focused on healing and rebuilding my life. My father and I grew closer, spending more quality time together. One evening, during one of our conversations, he turned to me with a serious expression. "Linda, are you interested in running the business?" he asked, his tone filled with both hope and expectation. I was momentarily stunned. "Do you mean taking over as president one day?" He nodded. "I believe you're ready to start preparing for it. You have the potential to lead." His faith in me was both humbling and empowering. "I'll do my best," I promised, determined to rise to the challenge. Since then, I've devoted myself entirely to my career. Learning the ropes of my dad's company has been demanding, but it's also deeply fulfilling. Each day brings new challenges and opportunities for growth, and I'm more motivated than ever to prove myself as a capable leader. Looking back, the wedding fiasco was a turning point. What could have been a devastating mistake became a chance to reclaim my life and focus on my goals. I'm grateful that the marriage wasn't legally registered, sparing me from the burden of toxic in-laws. Now, I'm free to pursue my ambitions without distractions. As I embrace this new chapter, I feel optimistic about the future. Leading my father's company one day feels less like a daunting task and more like a purpose worth striving for. To anyone who's followed my story, I hope you find strength in knowing that even the messiest situations can pave the way to a brighter future. Thank you for reading my story. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing, and I look forward to sharing more experiences with you in the future.